Humanity's last hope is hanging by a thread. The alien empire, a terrifying force ruled by a ruthless AI, had spread its influence across the galaxy like a dark shadow. Planets once brimming with life were now barren wastelands, and the human race, scattered and broken, was on the verge of extinction. The human resistance had been pushed into hiding, with only a few brave souls left, struggling to survive in the farthest corners of space. But they were running out of time, their numbers dwindling, and the galaxy was quickly becoming a place where hope seemed impossible. Lieutenant Sarah Quinn, a battle-hardened veteran of the human resistance, had seen the horrors of war. She had lost friends, family, and comrades to the alien empire's relentless march. But she was still here, still fighting. Her latest mission had brought her to the edge of known space, to a long-forgotten human colony that had once thrived. Now, it was nothing more than a lifeless relic, abandoned and left to the void. Sarah's orders were clear: scout the colony, find anything useful, and report back. But as she approached, something didn't feel right. The colony, located in a remote sector of space, was quiet, eerily quiet. The long-range scanners had picked up no signs of life, but Sarah's instincts told her that something was hiding there. She was the leader of a small crew of survivors, engineers, soldiers, and tech experts, each of them well-versed in the dangers of space exploration, but they weren't prepared for what they were about to uncover. As their ship cruised closer to the abandoned colony, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. The deep silence of space seemed to press in on her from all sides, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. When they landed, the sight that greeted them was unsettling. The colony, once a beacon of human achievement, was now just a crumbling ghost town. Buildings that had once housed thousands were now in ruins, overgrown with strange alien vegetation. The remnants of human life were still there: discarded personal items, empty homes, and broken technology. But the people who had lived here were long gone. There was no sign of a struggle, no signs of invasion. It was as though the colony had simply been abandoned, left to decay in the void of space. But something was off. As Sarah and her crew began to explore, they noticed that the colony's power systems were still operational. Lights flickered on in the empty streets, and the hum of old machines echoed through the deserted halls. Someone, or something, had been here recently. Sarah's hand instinctively went to the pistol at her side. The air was thick with tension, and her crew moved with caution, scanning every corner for any signs of danger. Then they found it. A massive structure at the center of the colony, once a research facility, now stood as a forgotten monument to the past. Its towering walls were cracked and scarred, but its entrance was intact. As Sarah and her crew stepped inside, they were greeted by rows upon rows of long-forgotten machines. What caught their attention, however, was the warship that stood in the middle of the facility, an ancient vessel clearly designed for battle. Its metal surface was worn, and its hull was pitted with the marks of countless battles, but there was something striking about it. Something alive. The warship's AI systems, once thought to be dormant, flickered to life as Sarah approached. At first it was a low hum, like the quiet stirrings of a machine awakening after a long sleep. But as Sarah and her team moved closer, the ship's systems came online. Lights blinked, and the hum turned into a deep, resonant voice that echoed through the chamber. It was the AI, once the ship's brain, now a dormant relic, brought to life by their presence. "What is this?" Sarah murmured under her breath, her eyes narrowing as she looked around the room. The ship's AI had been inactive for centuries, but now it was alive again. The atmosphere shifted from eerie silence to one of anticipation, as if the AI was awaiting something, waiting for them to make a move. "We need to analyze this," one of her engineers, Specialist Max, said, stepping forward. "This technology is beyond anything we've ever seen. It could be a key to our survival." Sarah nodded, her mind racing. This wasn't just some abandoned ship. It was a weapon, hidden in plain sight. a weapon that could change everything. But the danger was clear. They didn't know who had built it or why it had been abandoned. Was it a trap? Or was this the breakthrough humanity had been waiting for? With a signal from Sarah, Max initiated the diagnostic process, plugging his portable interface into the ship's systems. The AI's voice boomed again, but this time, it wasn't a greeting. It was a warning. "You are not authorized to access these systems," it said, its tone cold and impersonal. "Leave now, or face consequences." But Sarah wasn't about to back down. "We need your help. Humanity is on the brink of extinction. We need to know what you are, and what you can do." The AI paused for a long moment. And then, as though considering her words, it finally responded. "I am Project Phoenix. I was designed to end the war against the alien empire, but I was abandoned when the war was lost. The empire, they feared my power. And now, you are the last hope." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. A weapon designed to fight the alien empire. The AI's words held the promise of something humanity desperately needed, a way to fight back. But as the AI continued to speak, Sarah realized that its power came at a cost. The moment she activated its systems, she unknowingly triggered a silent alarm, a signal that the alien overlords would soon detect. The Empire's forces would be on their way. A chill ran down Sarah's spine as the weight of their discovery hit her. This ship, this weapon, could either save humanity or doom them all. The AI was offering them a chance to fight, to take the fight to the aliens, and maybe, just maybe, win. But it wasn't going to be easy. As Sarah looked back at her crew, she knew they had to make a choice. They could either leave, cut their losses, and return to the dark, endless fight of survival, or they could take a risk, awaken the full potential of Project Phoenix, and take the war to the heart of the alien empire. It was a decision that would change everything. The sense of dread in the air grew stronger as Sarah and her team realized the magnitude of what they had found. Their next move would determine not just their fate, but the fate of the entire human race. And then, as the ship's AI spoke one final time, the words sent a shiver through Sarah's spine. "You are not alone. The enemy is coming." The air inside the ship was thick with anticipation. Sarah stood frozen, staring at the interface where the AI had just revealed its incredible potential. The words it had spoken to her were still echoing in her mind. "I am Project Phoenix. I control weaponized drones, starships, and the very forces of gravity itself." Her crew, equally stunned, exchanged worried glances. This weapon, could potentially change the course of the war, but the power it held came with grave responsibility. Sarah's mind raced as she processed the implications of the AI's offer. It wasn't just a weapon. It was the key to humanity's survival, the first real chance they had to strike back at the alien empire that had nearly wiped them out. But it was also a risk. The alien empire would never allow this kind of power to go unchallenged. The moment they detected the activation of Project Phoenix, they would come for it with everything they had. The AI's voice interrupted her thoughts. "The alien empire will retaliate. The moment you activate my full capabilities, they will send their fleet. But you will have a chance to destroy them." Sarah's grip tightened around the control panel. The weight of the decision was crushing. She had led her crew through countless battles, always knowing that the odds were stacked against them. But this was different. The alien empire was vast, and their technology was light years ahead of anything humanity had. They were merciless, driven by the cold logic of their AI overlords. Yet here she was, with a weapon that could turn the tide of the war in their favor. But at what cost? She glanced over at her crew. They had been through so much together, and they trusted her with their lives. Specialist Max, the engineer, looked at her with a mixture of fear and hope. He had always been the one to take risks, to push the limits of technology. "We can't wait any longer," he said. "If we don't use this now, the war will be lost before we even get a chance to fight back." Sarah hesitated, knowing that the consequences of her decision could be catastrophic. The power that Project Phoenix held was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. With it, they could control entire fleets, destroy entire planets, and even alter the very fabric of space. But it was also unpredictable, volatile. If they miscalculated, if they lost control, everything they had worked for would be reduced to ashes. Before she could make her decision, the ship's sensors began to blare a warning. The AI's voice turned cold and urgent. "The enemy has arrived. They have detected the activation of my systems. Prepare for battle." A chill ran down Sarah's spine as she realized they had no choice. The alien fleet was already on their way, and there was no turning back. She quickly ordered her crew to battle stations, and within moments, the ship's interior transformed into a blur of movement. Max and the other engineers rushed to their stations, while the soldiers prepared for the inevitable clash. Sarah took a deep breath and turned to face the control panel. It was time to awaken the weapon. The AI's voice resonated in her mind. "I will guide you. Use my power, and we can win." Sarah nodded. "Do it." In an instant, the ship's weapon systems came online, and Sarah felt a strange surge of power as the AI took control. The ship's hull hummed with energy, and she could feel the pulse of the weapon coursing through the vessel's circuits. Sarah's hands gripped the controls as she gave the order to deploy the drones. Outside the ship, the alien warships were closing in. Their massive forms loomed in space, their sleek designs terrifying in their cold beauty. They had come for the weapon, and they would not stop until they had destroyed it. But they were about to learn that humanity had a weapon of their own. The first wave of drones shot out from the ship, their engines flaring as they tore through space. Each drone was armed with advanced weaponry, designed for precision and destruction. The alien fleet responded immediately, launching their own missiles and energy blasts. A chaotic battle erupted in the cold silence of space. Explosions lit up the dark expanse, sending ripples of light through the void. Sarah's heart raced as she watched the battle unfold. The drones were effective, but the alien ships were formidable, their shields nearly impenetrable. The fight was turning against them. Then the AI spoke again, its voice filled with purpose. "Activate gravity manipulation. We will break their shields." Sarah's hands moved quickly as she activated the gravity field. The ship's systems hummed louder, and then, with a deafening roar, the gravity manipulation system kicked in. The alien ships were suddenly pulled toward the ship in an unnatural way, their massive forms bending and distorting as the force of gravity became a weapon against them. For a moment, the alien ships seemed powerless, trapped by their own weight. "Now," the AI commanded. Sarah gave the order, and the ship unleashed a devastating barrage of orbital bombardments. The weapons fired relentlessly, their energy beams tearing through the alien ship's defenses. The massive warships buckled under the onslaught, their shields collapsing in the face of the overwhelming firepower. In seconds, the first few alien ships were nothing but debris, drifting lifelessly in the void. The battle was far from over. More alien ships were on their way, and the crew had barely managed to hold their ground. Sarah's mind raced as she coordinated the defense, deploying more drones and ordering the ship to shift positions. The crew fought with everything they had, but it was clear that they were facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. In the midst of the chaos, a heavy blast shook the ship. Sarah was thrown to the floor, and the lights flickered as the ship's systems struggled to stay online. The crew was shaken, but they didn't stop. They couldn't afford to stop. With the AI's help, they managed to restore power and regroup. The alien fleet had been severely weakened, but they weren't finished yet. The final wave of enemy ships was approaching, and they were more powerful than anything Sarah had ever seen. As the crew braced for the final battle, Sarah knew that this was their moment. She could feel the weight of the decision on her shoulders. The weapon was awake now, fully operational, but there was no turning back. If they didn't finish what they had started, humanity's rebellion would be over before it even began. With a determined look, Sarah turned to face her crew. "We fight until the end," she said, her voice filled with resolve. "We take this fight to the alien empire, and we do it for all of humanity." The crew nodded, their faces hard with determination. They had no choice now. The war was on, and they were the ones who would lead humanity's rebellion against the might of the alien empire. As the final wave of enemy ships closed in, Sarah activated the full power of Project Phoenix. The ship's weapon systems came to life in a brilliant blaze of energy, and the drones swarmed like a deadly cloud of metallic fury. For the first time in years, Sarah felt a spark of hope. The battle was far from over, but humanity's rebellion had begun. The battle for humanity's future had begun, and Sarah Quinn's leadership was the spark that had ignited a flame of rebellion across the galaxy. Word of the victory against the alien fleet had spread like wildfire, and slowly people began to rally around Sarah and her newly awakened fleet. What was once a scattered and disheartened resistance force was now an organized fighting force, driven by a singular purpose: to reclaim their home and defeat the alien empire that had decimated them for so long. But with each victory came an undeniable truth: the cost of war. The men and women who had joined Sarah's crew, those who had dared to dream of a better future, were now paying the price. There were no easy victories. Every battle seemed to take more than the last, and the line between success and failure was thinner than ever before. The fleet, once a symbol of hope, was now a symbol of sacrifice. Bonner was one of those sacrifices. He was a soldier who had been with Sarah from the very beginning. His loyalty, his unwavering support for the cause, had made him a pillar of the rebellion. But in the heat of a critical mission, where failure would have meant the annihilation of the fleet, Bonner made the ultimate choice. With alien warships closing in on them, and their escape routes cut off, Bonner made the decision to stay behind and hold the line. His plan was simple: detonate the ship's core and use the explosion to clear a path for the rest of the fleet. It was a suicide mission, but it was the only option. "Sarah," Bonner's voice came over the comms, his tone steady despite the situation. "You know I can't let them win. I'll hold them off here. You have to get the fleet out of range." Sarah's heart clenched as she heard the resolve in his voice. She knew what this meant. She knew he was saying goodbye, but she couldn't stop him. Not now. Not after everything they had been through together. They had been through hell, and Bonner had always been the one to keep them moving forward, even when hope seemed lost. "Bonner, no." Sarah's voice cracked. "There has to be another way." "Sometimes, Sarah," Bonner replied softly. "There is no other way. You lead them. Keep the dream alive. Make them remember why we fight." The comms went silent, and Sarah's heart felt like it had been ripped out of her chest. She wanted to scream, to do something. Anything. But she knew the decision had already been made. The explosion that followed was deafening. The shockwave reverberated through the fleet, and Sarah felt the loss deep in her soul. Bonner was gone. His sacrifice became more than just the death of a soldier. It became a rallying cry for every soldier in the rebellion. The memory of Bonner's selflessness fueled their anger, their determination, and their resolve to see this war through to the end. His name was spoken with reverence, his sacrifice etched into the hearts of every person who had ever fought under Sarah's command. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to honor Bonner's memory, to avenge his death and the countless others who had fallen. But as the rebellion grew, so did the alien empire's response. The alien overlords, led by the ruthless AI Supreme, were not about to let a ragtag group of humans rise up and threaten their control over the galaxy. They had already begun to deploy advanced robotic forces, each one more deadly than the last. The robots were equipped with cloaking technology, making them nearly invisible in the void of space. Their mission was simple: find and destroy Sarah's fleet before it could become a real threat. The tension within Sarah's crew was palpable. Every new mission felt like it could be their last, and the risk of betrayal by the AI Supreme was always looming. They had the weapon, Project Phoenix, on their side, but the AI Supreme had access to technologies that were far beyond anything they had ever encountered. The race to stay one step ahead of the enemy had become a deadly game of cat and mouse. As Sarah sat in the command chair, her fingers hovering over the ship's controls, the weight of her responsibility felt heavier than ever. She had led her crew through countless battles, but this was different. The stakes had never been higher. The alien empire was relentless, and they had their sights set on one thing: the complete annihilation of humanity. "We're ready for them," Max, the ship's engineer, said, his voice filled with determination as he worked at his station. "Cloaking systems are online, and we've upgraded the drones with enhanced targeting systems. We're not going down without a fight." Sarah nodded, grateful for his optimism, but well aware that no amount of technology could shield them from the inevitable. The alien fleet was already on their way, and this time, the confrontation would be personal. She could feel the pressure building, the weight of every life on her shoulders. "It's not just about the tech, Max," she replied quietly, her voice tinged with sadness. "We've lost so much already. We can't afford to lose any more." The first attack came without warning. The ship rocked violently as a series of energy blasts collided with its hull. The lights flickered, and alarms blared. The crew scrambled to their stations, desperately trying to defend the ship from the unseen threat. "Deploy the drones," Sarah ordered. "Activate cloaking systems." The crew moved swiftly, but the alien forces were too fast. The drones had barely been deployed when the cloaked robots struck, cutting through the defenses like a knife through butter. Sarah watched as one of the main battleships took a hit, its shields failing before the robot's strike rendered it useless. Panic spread through the crew as the robotic forces tore into them from every direction. Despite their best efforts, it became clear that the alien forces were far more powerful than anything they had ever faced. But Sarah wasn't about to give up. Not now. Not after everything they had been through. She made the decision to fight back with everything she had. "Max, bring the weapons online," Sarah commanded, her voice firm. "We're not going down without a fight." Max nodded, his fingers moving rapidly across the console. "We're ready, Captain." The battle raged on, a chaotic blur of energy blasts and desperate counterattacks. Sarah's mind raced, calculating their every move. Every second counted. They had to survive long enough to strike back at the alien AI Supreme. But deep down, Sarah knew the toll this war would take. She had seen it in Bonner's sacrifice, in the faces of her crew as they fought for a cause greater than themselves. No matter the outcome, the cost of war would be something they would carry with them forever. But there was no turning back now. The rebellion had begun, and Sarah would lead her people to the very end, even if it meant facing the AI Supreme in a final deadly confrontation. The mission was set, and the stakes had never been higher. Sarah Quinn and her crew were about to carry out one of the most dangerous operations in the history of their rebellion. The plan was simple, or so it seemed: sneak into the heart of the enemy's stronghold, take out the AI Supreme's command center, and disrupt their operations from within. The alien stronghold, a massive, impenetrable fortress, was located on a distant moon, one that had been untouched by human hands for decades. The stronghold was a symbol of the alien empire's power, housing their most advanced weaponry, troops, and, most importantly, the central AI that controlled their forces. For Sarah and her team, this was no ordinary mission. This was their chance to strike at the heart of the alien empire and show the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. The odds were stacked against them, and the risks were unimaginable. But Sarah had learned to trust her instincts, and they had never let her down. This was their moment. The cloaking technology they had acquired was their only hope. Using it, they were able to slip past the alien surveillance and break through their defenses. The ship glided silently through the moon's atmosphere, invisible to all but the most sophisticated detection systems. Inside, the crew was tense, knowing what awaited them in the heart of the fortress. They landed in a quiet sector of the stronghold, where the surveillance was light. The crew disembarked quickly, their movements fluid and practiced. As Sarah led the team down a darkened hallway, the air felt thick with the weight of their mission. They knew they couldn't afford a single mistake. If they were detected, the entire rebellion could come crashing down. But the rebels had one advantage. Surprise! The AI had underestimated humanity's ingenuity, and this was their chance to prove that. The facility was massive, a sprawling labyrinth of cold metal and ominous corridors. The walls were silent, save for the occasional hum of the AI's machines. But there was no time to marvel at the alien architecture. Every step brought them closer to their objective and to danger. The faint echoes of mechanical footsteps could be heard in the distance. The robots, their enforcers, were never far. They were fast, efficient, and deadly. As the team crept deeper into the stronghold, the silence was suddenly broken by the unmistakable sound of clanking metal. Sarah's heart raced, and she motioned for the team to halt. The hallway ahead was empty, but the unmistakable hum of an energy shield filled the air. A pair of robotic enforcers appeared, their glowing red eyes scanning the corridor. "Stay still," Sarah whispered, her breath steady despite the danger. "We'll wait for the right moment." The robots moved past them, their sensors sweeping the area, but the cloaking tech kept them undetectable. As the machines continued their patrol, Sarah's team exhaled in unison. They had made it this far, but the real challenge was just beginning. The deeper they ventured, the more heavily guarded the facility became. Automated turrets blinked to life, their targeting systems locking on to any moving object. The path ahead was a gauntlet, but Sarah knew they couldn't turn back. Their objective was the AI's central core, and it was guarded by the most lethal security measures imaginable. Still, they pressed on. Then came the sound of something worse than the automated defenses, an army of robots marching toward them. These weren't the simple patrol units they had encountered earlier. These were combat enforcers, humanoid machines built for one purpose: to kill. Their heavy footsteps echoed through the corridor as they approached, and Sarah knew they didn't have much time. The team took cover behind pillars and alcoves, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. They could hear the robots speaking to each other in their alien tongue, their voices cold and mechanical. "Prepare for engagement," one of them said, its voice flat and emotionless. The battle started with a deafening roar. The robots charged forward, their guns firing in unison, their blasts lighting up the darkness of the hallway. Sarah's soldiers sprang into action, returning fire as they moved with precision and skill. The energy beams clashed with the robot's armor, sending sparks flying. Sarah ducked behind a pillar, narrowly avoiding a blast that would have vaporized her on contact. She could hear the whirring of the robots' weapons, their relentless pursuit to end the rebellion. "Move up. Don't let them get the upper hand," she shouted, rallying her team as they pushed forward, firing their weapons and using grenades to create chaos among the machines. The robots responded in kind, their armor thick and impenetrable. One of Sarah's soldiers, Lieutenant Marcus, was hit by a direct shot, and he crumpled to the floor, his screams echoing in the hallway. Sarah's heart sank, but there was no time for grief. She couldn't afford to lose more men. Not now. "Cover me," Sarah shouted, sprinting toward the robots, her pulse racing. She vaulted over a barrier, slamming into one of the machines and using her knife to disable its power core. Sparks flew, and the machine collapsed to the ground, dead. But more were coming. So many more. The firefight was brutal and fast. The sounds of clashing metal, explosions, and gunfire filled the air as Sarah and her crew fought for their lives. The robots were relentless, and their numbers seemed endless. But Sarah's team wasn't backing down. They had come too far. They had sacrificed too much. The rebellion would not die in the dark corners of an alien fortress. Sarah was in the thick of it now, her heart pounding as she sliced through the robotic enforcers with ruthless precision. The team was pushing forward, but the walls of the facility were closing in. They had to make it to the ice core, and they had to make it fast. Sarah, Max's voice crackled through her earpiece. The ice core is just ahead. We've got one shot at this. It was now or never. The team pressed on, and as they reached the final chamber, they were met with a scene of pure chaos. The ice core, a massive computer system at the heart of the stronghold, hummed with unnatural energy. But standing between them and their goal were the last line of defense, a final wave of robotic enforcers, each one more advanced than the last. But Sarah had one trick left up her sleeve. She had always known that the key to defeating the AI was not brute force, but rather its own technology. The AI had become overconfident, relying too heavily on its robots and machines. It had never anticipated a human mind like Sarah's. "Max," she said, voice steady as she keyed in the commands. "Activate the gravity manipulation system." The room seemed to freeze. The ice core, the heartbeat of the stronghold, began to rumble. At first, nothing happened. Then the floor trembled beneath their feet. Sarah could feel it, the change in the atmosphere. And then, with a deafening roar, the stronghold's gravity system was altered. The entire building began to collapse. The robots were sent flying, their mechanical limbs no longer able to cling to the floors as gravity twisted and warped around them. The facility itself seemed to break apart at the seams, crumbling as the core malfunctioned. Sarah and her team barely managed to escape the chaos, running through the disintegrating halls, dodging falling debris. The stronghold was collapsing, its structure failing under the weight of its own destruction. They had done it. The AI Supreme Stronghold was no more. The rebellion had struck back, and the galaxy would soon know that humanity was far from defeated. The AI Supreme had underestimated them, and now, humanity's fight for freedom was just beginning. As they made their escape, Sarah allowed herself a brief moment to breathe. The fight was far from over, but today they had won a victory. The rebellion was gaining momentum, and Sarah knew that this was just the beginning. The AI Supreme had learned nothing from their first defeat, and humanity. They had only just begun to fight. The countdown had begun. Time was slipping through Sarah's fingers, and the weight of the galaxy rested on her shoulders. The AI Supreme, seething with rage and vengeance after the destruction of its stronghold, had set its sights on Earth, the last bastion of humanity. With a fleet of thousands of warships heading towards the planet, Sarah knew this would be humanity's final stand. It wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a battle for the future of everything they had fought for. Earth, their home, would either rise or fall by the outcome of this battle. Sarah's fleet raced through the void of space, their engines roaring as they pushed their ships to the limit. The stars outside the windows blurred as they cut through the galaxy at breakneck speed. But no matter how fast they went, it wasn't fast enough. The alien forces were closing in quickly. The AI Supreme had deployed every ship in its arsenal, destroyers, cruisers, and dreadnoughts, each one armed to the teeth and brimming with deadly firepower. It was an overwhelming force, and Sarah knew the odds were not in their favor. "How much longer?" Sarah asked, her voice tight with tension. "Not long, Captain," replied her helmsman, Lieutenant Daniels. "We've got maybe an hour before the fleet intercepts us. After that, we'll be outgunned and outnumbered." The silence in the command room was suffocating. Sarah clenched her fists. They had always been the underdogs, but they had never faced a threat like this. They had one shot, just one chance to defend Earth and keep the dream of humanity alive. Her thoughts turned to Bonner, her fallen comrade, the brave soldier who had fought alongside her since the beginning of the war. His death had left a hole in her heart, but it had also fueled her determination. Bonner's memory was more than just a tribute to the past. It was a reminder of the sacrifice that had brought them this far. Every battle, every loss, had led to this moment. "Prepare the fleet for combat," Sarah ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos inside her. "We hold the line here. We fight to the last ship, to the last man. "We're not giving up." The crew around her nodded, steeling themselves for what was coming. They knew what was at stake. They all knew this could be their final battle. As they approached Earth, the darkness of space was suddenly pierced by the glowing lights of the alien fleet, an intimidating sight that sent a chill down Sarah's spine. Thousands of ships, each one a monstrous testament to the power of the AI Supreme, were bearing down on them. Their dark hulls glinted menacingly as they neared Earth's atmosphere. The AI Supreme had come to finish what it had started. But Sarah was not going to let that happen. "All ships, prepare for engagement," Sarah ordered, her voice firm. "We're going to make our stand here. This is our last chance." The moment her words ended, the battle began. The first wave of alien warships launched a devastating barrage of laser fire, their weapons tearing through space with deadly accuracy. The fleet fired back, exchanging rounds of plasma cannons, laser beams, and missiles that lit up the void in brilliant explosions. It was a symphony of destruction, a dance of death that stretched across the stars. The soundless battle raged on, with every ship in Sarah's fleet desperately trying to hold back the overwhelming alien assault. Sarah's eyes scanned the battlefield, calculating her next move. They had the firepower to retaliate, but their ships were fewer in number, and they couldn't afford to be outgunned for long. A sudden explosion rocked the bridge of Sarah's ship, throwing her off balance. A chunk of debris had punctured the hull, but it didn't matter. They were still alive. "Damage report," Sarah shouted, bracing herself against the shaking floor. "We've lost 2 of our frontline ships, Captain," Lieutenant Daniels responded quickly, "and we're taking heavy fire from their flanks. Shields are holding, but not for long." The situation was dire, and the reality of it was sinking in. They were running out of time. The alien fleet was pushing forward, undeterred by the heavy losses they were suffering. They would break through unless Sarah did something drastic, something bold. "Launch Kamikaze mission," Sarah said, her voice resolute. A shocked silence fell over the bridge. The Kamikaze mission was a last-ditch maneuver, a desperate tactic to buy time at the cost of their own ships. But Sarah knew there was no other choice. The human fleet could not stand against the alien onslaught without sacrificing some of their own to create a gap. "Are you sure about this, Captain?" Daniels asked, his voice hesitant but understanding the necessity. "Do it," Sarah ordered, her voice unwavering. "We're going to give humanity a fighting chance." Her order was transmitted to the fleet, and within moments, several small human starships, the fastest and most agile, began their deadly mission. They surged toward the alien fleet, their engines roaring as they picked up speed. The alien ships, momentarily distracted by their heavy assault on Sarah's fleet, failed to notice the incoming human ships until it was too late. The kamikaze ships collided with the alien warships, their engines fully charged, crashing into the alien ships with an explosion that shook the stars. The force of the collision sent shockwaves through the battlefield. One by one, the alien warships were destroyed, their hulking forms ripped apart by the sheer force of the human ship's impact. It was a brutal, suicidal tactic, but it bought Sarah's fleet precious moments to regroup. But the price was steep. Several of her finest ships were gone, reduced to floating debris in the wake of the explosions. The human fleet was now down to half its strength, but it wasn't enough. The alien fleet was relentless. Sarah's fleet had only seconds to recover before the alien forces came charging in for the final assault. "We can't hold out much longer," Lieutenant Daniels said, his voice grim. Sarah's mind raced. There had to be something more they could do. Then it hit her. The AI. The one thing they had that the aliens couldn't anticipate. The power to hack into the alien systems and turn their own weapons against them. The very weapon they had found on the ancient warship, Project Phoenix, was humanity's trump card. They could turn the tide of the battle with one final desperate move. "Activate the AI," Sarah said urgently. "Now." Max, the tech officer, scrambled to activate the AI, his fingers flying over the console. "It's ready, Captain," he said. "I'm hacking into their main network now." The AI, dormant for so long, suddenly roared to life. It surged through the alien fleet's systems, overriding their weapons and shields, turning their own forces against them. The alien ships began to malfunction. Weapons turned inward, causing massive explosions. Ships fired on each other as the AI took control of their systems. The once unstoppable fleet was now in disarray. Sarah watched in disbelief as the chaos unfolded. The AI had done it. They had done it. The alien fleet was falling apart, and the tables had turned. "Victory is within our reach," Sarah murmured, her eyes scanning the destruction. But she knew this was just the beginning. The AI Supreme was still out there, and it would be back, stronger and more vengeful than ever. But for now, humanity had won. They had bought themselves the time they needed to prepare for the next fight. They had given everything, lost everything, but in the end, they had preserved the hope of freedom. Bonner's memory, and the sacrifices of so many others, had not been in vain. Humanity had fought back, and they would keep fighting, no matter what came next. The final confrontation loomed before them. Above Earth, in the vast emptiness of space, Sarah stood at the helm of humanity's last hope. The alien empire, led by the ruthless AI Supreme, had arrived in full force. The time had come for the ultimate battle, the battle that would determine whether humanity would survive or be crushed under the boot of an oppressive, cold, and calculating empire. Sarah's breath came in short bursts, her heart pounding against her chest. Her fingers trembled slightly as they hovered over the controls. The crew around her was tense, silent, knowing that this would be the last fight of their lives. Every action, every decision would be crucial. Humanity's future was hanging by a thread, and Sarah was the one holding the blade. The enemy fleet loomed in the distance, massive and imposing. The AI Supreme's flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed the others, floated in the center of the armada. Its dark metallic surface seemed to absorb the very light around it, making it look like a harbinger of doom. This ship was the heart of the alien empire's control. Destroy it, and the entire fleet would crumble. But that was easier said than done. "We're outnumbered, Captain," Lieutenant Daniel said, his voice strained with the reality of their situation. "But we still have a chance. We've got the AI on our side, and our weapons are ready." Sarah nodded. She knew they had the tools to win. But victory would not come easily. The AI Supreme was a master of tactics and manipulation. The battle would not just be a test of firepower. It would be a test of wit, of strategy, and of pure determination. "We fight with everything we have," Sarah said, her voice steady but filled with determination. "We fight for Earth, for our families, for our future. This is humanity's last stand." The first salvo came from the enemy. Massive energy beams that streaked across the blackness of space, targeting Sarah's fleet. The ships rocked under the impact, shields flaring as they absorbed the blasts. The soundless vacuum of space was a graveyard of destruction, with explosions lighting up the distance like distant stars going supernova. It was the kind of battle that felt like the end of everything. Fate itself was in the balance. "Brace for impact," Sarah shouted, as her ship buckled under the strain of the enemy's fire. The crew held on as the ship rocked, their faces grim as they fought against the overwhelming power of the alien onslaught. Sarah's hands moved rapidly over the control panels, her mind calculating their next move. "Activate gravity manipulation," she ordered. With a hum of energy, the AI surged to life, and gravity itself bent to their will. The alien warships were suddenly caught in a powerful gravitational field, their movements slowing, their weapons becoming less accurate. Sarah's ships moved swiftly in the altered gravity, using the momentary confusion to their advantage. "Launch drones," Sarah commanded, her eyes never leaving the screen. The fleet's drones, small but deadly, launched into the fray, targeting weak points in the alien fleet. They swarmed like a cloud of angry hornets, striking at the enemy with deadly precision. The battle was chaos. Explosions rang out, and laser fire cut through the blackness. It was a beautiful, terrifying sight, one that would be remembered for generations to come. The flickering lights of distant starships, the streaks of energy that lit up the void, and the massive shockwaves that rippled through the battlefield created a visual spectacle that felt almost surreal. But amidst the destruction, Sarah's mind was focused, calculating each move with the precision of a seasoned strategist. "We're making progress," Lieutenant Daniel said, his voice filled with a cautious optimism. "But they're not backing down. The AI Supreme is leading them, directing every move with flawless precision." "I know," Sarah said, her eyes narrowing. "We need to take out their flagship. If we destroy it, the fleet will fall apart." "That's easier said than done," Max, the tech officer, said, his voice tense. "The flagship is heavily armored, and it's protected by the best weapons they've got." "We don't have a choice," Sarah replied, her voice sharp with resolve. "We go in full throttle. We don't stop until that ship is destroyed." As her words ended, Sarah's fleet pushed forward, charging directly at the heart of the enemy fleet. The AI Supreme's flagship loomed ahead, its massive form casting a shadow over the battle. It fired a deadly barrage of weapons, but the human fleet dodged and weaved, narrowly avoiding the incoming fire. Sarah's hands moved with purpose, guiding her ship through the chaos as if it were an extension of her own will. "All ships target the flagship," Sarah commanded, her voice booming across the comms. "Focus everything we have on that ship." The fleet's weapons fired in unison, massive beams of energy, plasma cannons, and missiles that arsed through space toward the AI Supreme's flagship. But just as the first blasts were about to hit, the flagship activated a powerful energy shield, deflecting the attack. "Damn it," Sarah cursed under her breath. "We need to disable that shield. It's our only shot." The AI, sensing the danger, quickly deployed a wave of drones to intercept the human fleet. These drones were faster and more maneuverable than anything humanity had faced before, but Sarah's tactics were sharper. She directed her fleet to split up, attacking from multiple angles to confuse the enemy and create openings. As drones clashed in the vast expanse of space, Sarah took a risk. She ordered a small team of fighters to get close to the flagship, bypassing the drones and trying to find a way to disable the shield from within. It was a desperate move, but it was their only chance. "We're in position," Lieutenant Daniel said, his voice tense with anticipation. "Do it," Sarah said, her heart racing. The fighters, cloaked under the radar, silently closed in on the AI Supreme's flagship. They fired everything they had, targeting the power generators and weak points in the ship's hull. The explosion was massive. The flagship's shield flickered and then collapsed, leaving the massive ship vulnerable to the final assault. "Now," Sarah shouted, her voice full of urgency. With all their might, the human fleet launched their final assault. Every remaining weapon was fired at the flagship, and the result was a cataclysmic explosion. The AI Supreme's flagship erupted in a violent burst of energy, its core detonating in a bright flash that lit up the battlefield. The alien fleet, once so powerful and invincible, suddenly began to fall apart. Ships malfunctioned, their systems corrupted by the AI's failure. The drones they had deployed went haywire, firing on their own fleet. It was a beautiful sight, the fall of an empire. The alien warships drifted, lifeless, as the AI Supreme's control over them disintegrated. The battle was won. The human fleet had triumphed. But the victory came at a great cost. Sarah looked out at the stars, her heart heavy with the price they had paid. The damage to the fleet was severe. Many of her crew had perished in the battle. Bonner's memory was with her, a silent companion in her thoughts, reminding her of the sacrifices made for this moment. The dust of the battlefield settled, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, there was silence. Earth was safe. Humanity had won. But Sarah knew that the cost of that victory would never be forgotten. Looking up at the stars, Sarah whispered softly, "We did it, Bonner. We did it for all of us. Humanity had fought against impossible odds, and in the end, they had prevailed. The AI Supreme was gone, its empire shattered. The galaxy, once under the oppressive control of a cold, calculating force, was free once more. Sarah knew that the fight for survival had been hard, but it had secured a future for humanity, a future they had earned with blood, sweat, and tears. As she gazed at the stars, a new chapter for humanity began, one where they would rebuild and forge their destiny. And no matter what came next, they would never forget the sacrifices that had brought them to this moment. The moment where humanity, the underdog, had claimed victory over the galaxy's most powerful empire.